Hello, my name is Michael. Welcome back. Thank you for deciding to join me for this third part in our three-part series on how to make slogans into powerful practices. If you haven't seen the first and second part, I highly recommend that you do that before you watch this one. They will provide a foundation of understanding and orientation that will allow you to get a lot more out of this third video. So please do go back and watch those if you're interested in this third part. To recap, the first two videos, the first one I explored using words, using slogans as a practice in themselves, and I explored the deep roots of this cross-culturally and throughout time for human beings, going back to when language was first created. That words are very powerful. And so I covered that and how to do basic practice with slogans. In the second video, I explored components that can be brought to a practice with slogans to make it a lot more powerful, or turbocharge it, so to speak. This involves the words, of course, but also visualizations, using voice and sound, using the whole body, and tuning into feelings and the experience and the emotions of the practice itself. This was to provide a foundation so that I could now, as I've promised, provide a couple examples of how to bring all of that to bear on a slogan practice. The first example I would like to give is very elaborate, and to give a sense of just how far you can go with it. And the second example is very simple, straightforward, just to show also that it can be simple. And that's probably the best place to start, if you haven't done these kind of practices before, is to start on a very basic level. And perhaps over time, add things and make it more elaborate. Again, as a bit of background, what I will bring to bear in these rituals, these practices, I should call them, goes back to my study of cultural anthropology, goes back to my study and practice within Tibetan Buddhism, involves my practice and study and practice as a therapist and a coach. And for the first practice that I will offer, it involves my experiences within men's work, being a part of men's groups and attending weekend workshops and being in ongoing men's groups to cultivate my sense of myself as a man. So, to boil down to the simple beginning of this practice, a simple slogan, which was simply, be the best man you can be. Me telling myself to be the best man I can be. Now, I could have stopped there. It could have been just something I said in my head every morning, every few days, and maybe that would have prompted me to be the best man I could be. But I wanted to go further, and I wanted to be a little more specific about what that might mean, being the best man I can be. For that, I drew on both my study within psychology of Jungian psychology, but also within the men's work of what was called the mythopoetic part of the men's work, which is involvement with mythology and fairy tales and stories that are at the heart of Jungian archetypes. And there are 4 masculine archetypes that are particularly emphasized. And where's my book here? This is a book I read once upon a time and became the guiding principles for some practices. And this is titled The King, the Warrior, the Magician, and the Lover. Robert Moore and Douglas Gillette. If you're familiar with Jungian archetypes, then you know what I'm talking about. If not, a very brief description could be useful. Based on Jung's study of fairy tales and mythologies throughout the world and the stories that human beings tell of the characters in their lives and the realm of the gods, there are patterns of being and thinking and feeling and doing that are coherent within themselves. They're like characters. And they represent aspects of our own psychology. And these 4 masculine archetypes speak to some fundamental aspects of masculine psychology. The king, get the right order, the king, the warrior, the magician, and the lover. You can read about these if you're particularly interested in this. I'm not doing this to teach you about masculine psychology. I'm offering this as an example of a way to turn slogans into powerful practices. It's just an example of that. But toward that purpose, I can say a little bit about each archetype. The King archetype boils down to being willing to pay attention to your own realm, to be aware of what's happening in your own world. You might call it your own kingdom. It's not the space in which you get to tell everybody what to do and levy taxes and live a rich, opulent life of power. It's a realm in which you sit in the center and you survey your realm. And you become aware of it and you take responsibility for it. Whatever happens in our lives, we can take responsibility to respond to it. And that's what the king does. So each of these archetypes entailed, for me, a sub-slogan, which I came up with. For the king, the sub-slogan was, be aware of your realm and take responsibility. The warrior. What is a warrior? This does not mean the person who goes out and wages war against other people. It's not about ransacking villages and plundering them for their loot and booty. It's about overcoming fear and being courageous in the face of danger and threat when it comes to things that matter, when it comes to defending what we care about or pursuing what we care about. The warrior energy gives us the strength, the discipline, and the courage to do that. The sub-slogan for this archetype, for me, was be courageous and fierce and disciplined and pursuing and defending what is important. And I would usually add a little exclamation when I would say this out loud, and I'll get to that part, where I would just say, ho! To embody that energy. The magician. This archetype is about magic, but not pulling rabbits out of hats. This is more, goes back to the ancient art of alchemy, turning common elements into gold. But another translation of it is to bring heaven to earth. Heaven not being the mythological heaven, but heaven being the realm of limitless possibilities, the vastness of space in which creative ideas percolate, in which our brilliant ideas and inspirations can be found, and we can have visions of what's possible. But the magician isn't just a daydreamer. The magician brings that vision down to earthly reality and embodies it and works with physical elements to make it manifest in reality. The slogan what goes with that, for me, was Bring heaven to earth and manifest your highest aspirations. Bring heaven to earth and manifest your highest aspirations. Last but not least, the lover. The lover is about, you could call it emotional intelligence, you could call it tenderness, affection, love, actual love, the emotion of love and affection. And that's what it does. It's the thing that connects us with each other and with things that we love through affection. And my sub-slogan for that was, open your heart and give your affection freely. Okay, so there are archetypes, and I've shared that there are sub-slogans for each one. Perhaps as I named these archetypes, you had an image in your mind of each one. Maybe you pictured a king, maybe you pictured a warrior, maybe you pictured a lover, maybe you pictured a magician. I don't know. I wanted a clear image for each one to accompany my practice. And I settled on the tarot deck, the Waite Rider deck, for these images. They're deep within the Western tradition, and they seem to make sense for me. I chose the King of Cups for the king, the Knight of Swords for the warrior. For the magician, I chose, there's an actual card called the Magician. And for the lover, I chose the Lovers. These were external images to visualize. So I'm going to set it up. Now let me describe to you what I did with this for my practice. Would start, I had a small low table, and I would set the cards out on the table to be ready. And then I would take a seat on my meditation cushion in front of the cards, and I would start not looking at the cards, just doing a mindfulness meditation, following my breath, settling my mind, establishing my posture on my cushion of being alert and relaxed. And when I was ready, I would look down and gaze on the cards one at a time. And I will put these up for you to see as I'm talking. For the king, I would look at the King of Cups, I think it was. I would visualize that externally. And then I would take the posture of the king. I would sit up a little taller on my cushion. Make my posture upright, strong spine, square shoulders but relaxed. Visualize that I was on a throne. Sometimes I would imagine it had jewels in it, just a very special throne. You can visualize what you'd like if you want. I would visualize wearing a crown. I could have gotten a crown and put it on to enhance the practice, but I didn't. And then I would look out at the rest of the room and imagine that it was my realm, it was my kingdom, and that I was being aware of it. And then I would out loud say the slogan, I am aware of my realm and I take responsibility. So I try to feel that in my whole body. Picture the throne, picture the crown, picture the room as my kingdom, the sense of being alert, the sense that I wasn't going to pass the buck. I wasn't going to look for anybody to fix my problems for me or to save me, that it was up to me to deal with what arises in my world. Linger with that. Be with that for a while. Not an extraordinary amount of time, but long enough to feel it, to make sure I got some sense of it in my body, my mind. Then I would go on to the warrior. Again, look at the card. Feel a sense of warrior energy, of fearlessness, courage. Then I would stand up and take a posture. I didn't have a horse, and I didn't visualize being on a horse. I visualized being on the ground, on my feet, and I would put my left foot forward, and I would put my left arm like this, visualizing a shield, which was to protect myself from danger and harm. That I wasn't going to just lay myself open to anything. I was willing to defend myself. In my right arm, I visualized, I put my hand here, that I had a sword. And this was pointing in the direction of, I wouldn't say my enemy, I would say the thing that I feared, the thing that might stop me from going forward, that I was willing to confront it and cut through it and hold that warrior posture. Maybe while I was in that posture and visualizing a sword and a shield, I might visualize a particular challenge that I had coming up. And picture myself coming at it in a warrior fashion. Again, holding that until I felt it. Then letting it go, moving on to the magician. Look at the card. A sense of the magician with one arm up to heaven and one arm down to earth. And I would stand and put my left arm up, put my right arm down. I think I have that right. And visualize my left hand up, practically in outer space, in the sky, touching heavenly things, touching the roots of creativity, of inspiration, touching. My right hand, I would visualize imagine I was touching stone or dirt, earth, the ground, and I would visualize energy coming down through my arm and energy coming up through my other arm, meeting me in the middle, and that I was to manifest heaven brought to earth. And that the things that I wanted and visualized and dreamed about could be realized. Here's one of the things that I added to this practice, just to give a sense of how you can play with it. At that time, I was painting a house that I owned in New Hampshire. And New Hampshire gets very cold in the winter. And the house was a kind of a cold blue color. And I wanted a warm color. I wanted to paint the whole house. It was a fairly large house. And I didn't have anybody to help me. I had to do it myself. And I decided to paint it a salmon color. Some would call it pink. I think it was salmon. That was my vision. And it was quite hard. It was a lot of work. And so that could be included in my practice. When I drew heaven to earth, I would visualize my house all painted. I did eventually paint the house. And it was great. Made me feel better in the winter. Okay, magician. Do that for a while, and then move on to the lover. Again, look at the card, the tarot card, a man and a woman, naked. It's a feeling in the card of intimacy, perhaps sexuality, love. So I'd gaze at it and begin to evoke these feelings. And then, I would usually sit down for this. I would put my hands over my chest over my heart and feel that through my hands, but also feel through my chest, my hands on my heart, and feel and imagine and feel that I was opening my heart, waking it up, and saying the slogan again: open your heart and give your attention freely. The tender part of myself. There is that tender part of masculinity. Masculinity isn't all about warriors and kings. It's also about lover. And this was part of what I was wanting to bring into my own psyche and my own manifestation in the world. So, hand on heart, saying the slogan, feeling it, and then bringing my hands outward. This is the gesture that went with it. It's drawing that feeling out and giving it in the world. And then sometimes I would embrace. I visualize embracing somebody or visualize embracing the world in my arms. Again, lingering with that so I could feel it. Okay, so now I've gotten through all 4 archetypes with saying them out loud, with visualizing them, and with bringing them into some gesture or bodily expression. And sit down, back on my cushion, and go back to mindfulness meditation. I didn't continue to dwell on the slogans or the images, just went right back to the breath. And this is like I don't remember what they call it. Is it the corpse posture in yoga? At the end of a vigorous yoga session, sometimes the instructor will have you just lay on the floor. And this is to let your body integrate all of the yoga that you've just done. This is what I imagine in this part of my practice, that I was letting my brain and my mind digest what I had just done, and I didn't need to do more with it. I would just let that percolate and be in my system. So meditate for a while and then stop. That was it. That was the end. And I think that took me 20 to 30 minutes. I might have been able to do it briefer, but in order to actually linger with it, it took a little time. Now, I did this for a while, repetitively. It wasn't just something I did once or twice. And that needs to be said, I think, for any practice. If you want to learn to play the piano, you don't just sit down and play it once or twice, or play it for a week, or any other musical instrument, or if you're learning any skill or athletic activity, there's a lot of practice that goes into it. We have a lifetime of neural activity that cultivated other things. And if we're wanting to instantiate a new pattern in our mind, in our bodies, and in our brains, it can take repetition. So I encourage you that if you take on any of this, that you stick with it a little bit and not expect grand results quickly, but trust that over time and repetition, it will have a very big effect. I can't tell you the metrics and how I can prove that this practice of mine made me a better man, but I think it did. It oriented me and put not only ideas and allowed me to formulate intentions, but it gave me an internalized feeling of these things that I still can get in touch with. They're still available to me, even though I haven't done that actual practice for a long time. So that's the elaborate practice. Now I want to talk about another practice, a simpler practice. Again, just to demonstrate that it doesn't have to be complicated. This other slogan practice based on a slogan I came up with for mugs, t-shirts, and tote bags. And the slogan is, "Today I will, ... The dots are meant to suggest that you fill in the blank. To say what it is you will do that particular day. And I might say that I got myself one of my own mugs and practiced with this myself. And the first thing that I put for dots was, I will today practice filming a video of myself. I had never done it before. I didn't want to do it. I didn't feel comfortable doing it, but I knew I needed to do it. So I set out, and that was about maybe 3 months ago. And I just started filming myself talking gibberish. Now with this video, it'll be 26 videos I've put out on YouTube. So it worked for me. But here's the way to practice with that slogan. Imagine it's on your coffee mug. You get up in the morning and you look at it, drinking your coffee. Today I will. You take a breath and go, okay, yeah, all right, fine. I'll do something, yeah. That's right, I'm supposed to do something today. I'll do something today. I don't know what, but yeah, it's a good idea. Yeah, it's a good idea. I'll do something. That's not the practice. The practice is to recognize, I'm going to practice now. I'm going to do something intentional. It doesn't have to be a big deal, but you just straighten up your posture. Again, get grounded, centered, relaxed, upright. You look at the mug and you say out loud, "Today I will," and you fill in the blank. Think of something you're going to do that day. Declare it. Hear it in your voice. Use your voice to convey that you mean it. I worked with my voice around this one. My first practice of it. It wasn't, today I'll do a practice video. No, it was, today I will do a practice video. So yeah, say it out loud, say it like you mean it. Visualize yourself doing it, whatever it is. If you need to go to the hardware store to get some paint, to paint your bathroom, and that's what you're going to do. You're not even going to paint the bathroom, you're just going to get the paint. Then visualize yourself going to the store to get the paint. Then do a gesture, make a movement that represents what you're going to do. If it's driving to the store to get paint, today I will drive to the hardware store and get some paint. You're holding a steering wheel and I know it's corny, you can play with it. The idea is you're beginning to activate motor neural pathways so that you're priming the pump for actually taking action. Maybe later after you get the paint, you'll say, "Today I will paint the bathroom," and then you'll make a gesture like this. Either you're using a brush or a roller. Get it in your body. Okay, so you've made the gesture. Now what? Now set the intention to actually do it. It's no longer a good idea, something that would be nice to do, something that makes sense. It's something you're actually declaring you will do. Today I will. And set that intention. For me, it's a feeling I get in my gut, in my solar plexus, when I set an intention. It means I'm not going to come up with an excuse not to do this. I haven't chosen something that I can't do or I'm not ready to do. I've chosen something that I can do and I will do. And I've set that intention. So do that, and then go about your day and do that thing, whatever it was. And when you do it, appreciate that. Give yourself credit feel satisfaction. You were able to decide to do something, and you did it. You can do that. Maybe you can do that again. Fairly simple. See the slogan, put yourself in a readiness to contemplate it, say it out loud, think about what it means, visualize yourself doing it, set your intention, and then act on it. Okay, so there are two examples. One's very elaborate, and one, I think, is pretty simple. What I will do is I'm going to do a synopsis of this video and include a link in the description below so that you can get it as a PDF file and perhaps print it out so that you don't have to try to remember everything I've said, and I'll have distilled out the key ideas for you for this. While you're looking at that, you might also check out the description for Attention Bazaar and visit the store and see if there's something there that strikes your fancy and would be a good idea for you. Also, if you have liked this video, give it a like and subscribe to my channel. If you think that these videos would be of value to somebody you know, please share them. That would be great. I'd appreciate that. In closing, I want to share a quote from a mentor of mine, a psychiatrist who is gone now, but his name was Edward Podvall. He wrote a book called The Recovering Sanity. He was the director of the Naropa psychology program for many years. He was the founder of an organization called Windhorse that uses principles of mindfulness and compassion in working with people with extreme psychiatric issues. And his teaching to me helped enhance and strengthen a lot of what I've shared with you, although I'm maybe using some different concepts. Anyway, he was an important teacher to me, and what he used to say is we are all practicing something. And this was in the context of talking about a mindfulness practice or other kinds of spiritual practices. It's just the recognition that if we're alive, we're practicing. If a practice is simply something we do repetitively with our mind and our body and our relationships, then we're practicing something. And it matters what we practice. What have we been practicing all our lives? What have we entrained our neural networks to? What have we accustomed our mind and our body to thinking and feeling? If we want to grow, develop, we may need to take on new practices to counteract the practices we've been doing that have been counterproductive and move to the next place that we can move. So may what I've offered in these videos provide some ideas for you for how to fashion practices that will facilitate your own growth, healing, development. And that if you decide to focus them on slogans, then I hope that I've provided you a way to think about that and a set of ingredients that you can use to make your own recipes. Okay, I think that's all for now. Thanks for joining me. If you've listened to all 3 videos all the way to the end, I'm very grateful. Thank you. I appreciate it. And I will see you in a future video. Bye-bye.